Hello, everyone. This is episode 2 with my good buddy James.
Hey,
Very enthusiastic.
always ants.
Alright, so one thing I wanted to talk about was, why I don't necessarily believe in religion or an afterlife. And why I think it's harmful for society to have, religion. So here's my opening thought. One of the key aspects of religion is you need to have faith to believe in it, right? What is faith? Faith is the absence of evidence, essentially. And you need faith in order to believe that a deity exists, because there is no proof that, you can't just, drive somewhere, point to him and be like, yeah, this guy, and he has all the answers. It's through faith. There is no evidence of anything in particular. What this makes it so, or what I feel, is that this creates a situation in which you have uncritical thought. It's like, well, you have to accept what is true from my perspective, because it has to be true in order for, there's this circular reasoning as to why it exists in the first place. So it's like, what this does is it creates a situation in which you believe something so true even though it isn't, and it creates a lot of, it creates a lot of issues when it comes to evolution. Well, I don't believe it. Well, what's the evidence of that? Let's look at the details, the statistics, empiricism. Sorry, my fault. We're throwing out empiricism by suggesting that faith exists above every other, above every other perspective. So it's like, is it true? Well, let's look at evidence. Let's do scientific rigor in order to prove that it exists. Well, we're throwing that out because my faith says that it isn't. Therefore, it creates this situation in which a lot of people tend to they have conspiracy theories, and you have QAnon, and you have people who think that kids shouldn't be gay, because this is throwing out all science and evidence, because, oh, my God says that, kids shouldn't be gay, or that, vaccines didn't, and so on and so forth. Jehovah's Witnesses when it comes to blood transfusions. So yeah, I think that it's more harmful for good than good in modern society, is my opinion.
I think people. I think people need a belief with. I mean, they don't necessarily need religion, as it's more of occult gatherings. But people need to believe because it gives them hope,
I guess.
Some people.
Well, and that's
just,
the thing. It's like, and I relate this more to Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. It's it's fine to have this thing where everybody gets together and discusses a book, or you have D&D sessions and stuff like that. I guess my position would be, I don't think that it should be tax deductible for churches to allow safe havens for priests and what they do to little kids. And I think that what we should do is not allow government institutions to be safe havens for stuff like this. And it's make it so that they're taxed, and then because when you and I go play D&D, we don't have some place that we go to that we have tax deduct. It would be so much easier if those D&D books were a lot cheaper because they were like, what, $60 a pop? It's ridiculous. But, religious institutions, from my perspective, are the exact same thing, except they have more, and they have way more wiggle room. And not only that, like, you have, like, Kenneth Copeland, who was, he also promoted Trump and told his audience to vote for Trump, and so I think that, that is, technically they're not allowed to do that. They're not allowed to influence elections and everything, but they still do it anyway. And I think that there needs to be some kind of penalization for that, but they get a slap on the wrist. And not only that, they also manipulate people into giving them their hard-earned money, that most of the people that go to church are poor, so it's like you're robbing from the poor, and you're giving them the illusion of some kind of afterlife. And even if you agree that there is an afterlife, or you think that there is or isn't, you're still robbing them of the life that they have currently right now.
Right. It was one reason I don't go to a church, just because I believe in something doesn't mean I have to go to a place where I'm being subjugated.
Right, and a lot of people who have their own sense of spirituality, like, don't necessarily go to church anyway. It's just for people who have this way, they have this place that they can worship together. And not only that, and I understand, like, the argument that a lot of people have when it comes to, they did a statistic, and it's like, well, people who are religious are, they live longer than people who are atheists. I don't know if you know that, but the reason why that is because atheists don't have a sense of community. But that goes into another tangent, because that's more to do with the fact that you have a group of people who are they're allowed to kind of have safe, it's like you have a community, but you have it based on something that is like controlled, whereas you can't have really a functioning community center without it being like capitalized or whatever. Oh my god, my cat is just needing attention. But yeah, sorry. You have any input on that?
Like I said, some people just need something to believe in because it gives them hope and stuff.
True. So I was thinking about that too. So one of the arguments that a lot of religious people say is that, like, what if Timmy lost his grandmother, right? And to help him grieve about his grandmother dying, let's say, right? So a lot of people like to say this argument, but the fact of the matter is, if you look in, like, if you do a little research into psychology, you have to go through the stages of grief in order to become more of a good, like, it creates a dependency on something that isn't true. Because if you're going through the stages of grief and then you come out the other end going, well, my grandmother is no longer in this world and I will never meet her again, you're a more whole person than somebody who has a dependency for the afterlife. Now you're so afraid to not do anything wrong because your goal is to die so that you have Christ in your heart and you die and then you go to heaven so you can see your grandmother. And it robs the person of being able to properly grieve, and it promotes an incentive to be like, oh, well, now I need to believe in Jesus in order to go see my grandmother in the afterlife. I would say that it creates a really toxic dependency on and it solidifies religion as an institution as a whole. And I think that's very harmful.
The, I never really grieved for anybody
Right.
because
But then again, you don't necessarily go to church either.
I don't. I've never been taught to grieve for a person. My family's always celebrated the person's life, not their death.
Oh, that's good.
And it gives a different mindset than grief does.
Yeah, but you still have to grieve, and like
there's a little bit like you feel sad
like
that they're no
you're
longer
just like,
alive.
oh, somebody died! Yay!
It's not like I'm
Finally, that
celebrating that
grandma's
they
gone.
died. I'm not. It's not saying that I'm not going to be sad for them and grieving that they're no longer in my life right now.
Yeah.
It's so the dead are dead.
Yeah.
We don't really have any true understanding of what happens after that. If
Right.
there isn't after that. And
But you're more pantheistic than like.
Why continue grieving over it after that moment when they've had a great life to begin with? They've lived a long time.
Well, and that's
For most of them, like grandmas, they're up 70, 80, 90 years old.
right.
They die.
And that's the thing too. It's like I feel like
They've accomplished a lot.
right, and I feel like one of the things that religion does is it robs you of your time on earth, because it's like, I know somebody in my personal life who has this mentality that like the things that in this life do not matter. Whatever happens in this life could not be consequential in any way, because like it doesn't really matter as long as she's praising God, because the afterlife is such more blissful than the current life she currently has, and it's robbing her of her current life. And that's the thing, it doesn't necessarily speak to a larger proportion of the population. What I'm saying is that this incentive that, the pearly gates are going to be a blissful place and I want to be there, then why correct anything in this current life? Why make the world a better place?
I don't necessarily believe in a God per se, like how religion perceives God as being this one almighty being that created, can destroy and whatever he wants. I don't believe that. What I do believe is our life energies, if you want to call it a soul or whatever you want to call it. That don't really matter. It's just like it's transferred from one being to the next. Like, not like in the same sense of reincarnation. But some people would see it as reincarnation. I mean, you could wake up in another body in another dimension somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's just your conscious energy being passed from being to being. Whether it be another baby on Earth, or a cat or a dog, or some other creature from another dimension or realm, or whatever you believe in.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, and that's the thing. I feel like, well, the thing is like, I feel like when it comes to all of that stuff, it still takes away from, like, reality. It's like how much of this, it's like, it makes life inconsequential. It's like, well, the tangible reality in which we live has no, it has no need, it has nothing, we can't, like, make a difference or an impact in our community, because it's like, well, if everything is a spirit and is fluid within our realm, then like the current place where we're currently at means nothing, right? It kind of allows like a sedation um, of the world around us, because it's like, well, we don't need to vote against politicians who are making people's lives worse. We don't need to act in our community. We don't need to, you know, form unions, or we don't need to do all these things to make an impact in our world, because we're so disillusioned with things that don't necessarily, that kind of distract us from the world around us. And there's no problem with like having distractions. I mean, you know, I like playing video games. I read books. I you know, watch TV and stuff like that. Like there's no problem with distractions. However, there is a problem, in my opinion, when it comes to we're not necessarily giving any thought to the world around us, and just kind of like mulling over in our own heads, you know, these things and possibilities that don't actually, from what we can actually prove, are tangible. I mean, if you can find a way of proving that they're tangible, then, you know, so be it. But I think like it's all theoretical until we're able to actually prove its existence, and that what is actually existing is in needing of a lot more help than what everything else is giving attention to.
It's like, what is your reality is whatever you perceive, because it is the here and now. Reality doesn't expand into what's going to happen and what has happened. Reality is just what's happening now, really.
True. So, I mean, we can predict things that will happen. Sure. Like we can predict global warming.
Any person would say they would agree that eventually they're going to die.
Right. And that's not like, okay,
It's
well,
like,
how do we manage?
No scientists have come up with an answer to what happens after that. So, you know, if you believe that nothing happens, nothing happens.
Exactly.
And I'm not gonna sit here and preach to you about what I believe happens.
Right.
Because I don't really, you know, it's not going to change anything. Our friendship is going to be the same no matter what.
Yeah. It's just, this is one reason why I like diving into politics, and I give a good chunk of my day to like learning about like different things. It's like I didn't understand what trans people were, or the like all of that was, but like it's like I learned through constantly exposing myself to different things, and like understanding like the whole thing. It's very complicated, and I just, oh man, it when I hear some people are like, oh, gender is so interesting, and it's like, it really isn't, in my opinion. Like, it's just it should be just as simple as, you want some fuck? No fuck? No fuck.
Let's go back to animal instincts.
What? No, because
let's go back to animal instincts. What do? They don't care.
Yeah, they just fuck. Right. And then you have like lionesses who become lions because there's no lions around. It's like, you know,
pseudo.
Yeah. Well,
they can't breed.
Yeah, but they did. Yeah.
So
they die out with the lion.
they get their rocks off and die. But
the dream.
It's like any trans person, they lose the ability.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. It's like, and then, well, and I feel like
unless you're that one couple that is trans, where the man's the woman and the woman's the man, the man got the woman pregnant and they're still
Yeah, it's being straight with extra steps. Yeah. And it's like, oh, man.
Whereas for me, I don't care.
Right. I think one of the reasons why a lot of
In
people,
between,
I think one of the reasons why conservatives right now are going after trans people is because it's going back to the Great Replacement. Oh, well, because, certain people aren't breeding, other people are coming into the country, therefore the demographics are going to change. Like the Tucker Carlson kind of like thing where it's like, we're going to be replaced after a while. It's like, yeah, fuck you, dude. But, that's the thing. It's like, gay people aren't going to breed because you forced them to anyway.
no, but there are a lot of gay couples I know that have adopted.
Right.
I almost said something different there.
Well, that's the thing. It's like you can adopt it,
They're taking in the unwanted child.
I love the one guy who was going up to people and there was people who were protesting against abortions, and they were Christian couples, and he went around with a thing and said, "Hey, you want to? Here's a pamphlet so that you can you can adopt some kids." They're like, "Nah, we're not having any of that." It's like, hey, you don't want people to be aborted. That means you want to adopt. Oh, you want to adopt? Sweet, here's the pamphlet for you. No, we won't want that. Yeah, because it's all virtue signaling. It's like they just want to take rights away from women. That's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, this is another reason why, it's like you have people who are religious who go after women with abortion debates because it's a religious thing now. And even if the Bible isn't saying verbatim, no abortions or whatever it is, it's like they will interpret it or misinterpret it any way they can in order to take rights away from women.
That's one of the biggest things about religion that I don't like is the subjugation of people.
Gay people, women, trans people, slaves.
The interpretation of the Bible to suit one's own needs is actually in the Bible that says that is wrong.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter whether or not it says it's wrong because there's so many contradictions in the Bible. You can just piece together whatever bullshit you want to string along, and there's a harm in that again, this goes back to faith, where it's like you can interpret anything because you don't need any grounded axioms in reality. You can just say, hey, whatever it is, because at the end of the day, whatever I think should be is what should be, and you can justify it any way you want.
It started with certain people 3,000 years ago taking what they didn't like about the Bible and taking it out and saying it didn't exist to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And again, and that's the thing. It's like these are sponsored by people
just so that they could religiously persecute other nations that didn't have the same beliefs.
Right. Oh yeah, let's talk about the Crusades, Oh yeah, that's a great example of how religious people, kind of subjugate reality by having crusades, by saying that, my God is, people coming in from England to the, and subjugating indigenous people. It's just like, well, you heathens don't understand me or anything. It's like, you're now making it worse for everybody else. And it's like, again, this is one reason. And it's like, even if you were to just, at the minimum, just make it so that you tax churches for being around, it makes, it's like you could have your own little underground, churches or whatever, and that's fine. You have like AA meetings, for example. You have some people like around like a little circle, and they talk about, you know, how they're recovering from things. But I mean, I don't necessarily agree with AA meetings because they push religious ideology. But you know, just for this example,
you gotta supplement one
addiction for another. Right.
Let's push religion.
Yeah, yeah, and they push religion as a way of like exposing it to vulnerable people, which I disagree with.
There's other things they could do.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like there are secular ways of going about it, and there should be. You know, just there's so many roots that religion has in our modern era that it just needs to be pulled out because it's not doing any good things. In my opinion, everything that religion does can be secularized and just voided of religion. Now, again, if you want to have like your own personal beliefs about things and you have no way of like influencing elections or making it so that the town around you is bad because of religion, in my opinion, I would just secularize everything. Like
I have no influence on who gets voted into. I might vote for a person, but that doesn't guarantee that
right. You're not preaching a message of like, hey, you know, my God says you should do this.
Because we have a system in this country. That
I think it's Lauren Bromberg. I can't remember her name. She's a senator right now, and she's like heavily religious.
Denies the people's voice because of the electoral college.
Yep. Yeah, well, yeah, we should abolish the electoral college for sure.
I can vote for whoever I want. Whoever they vote for is what's going to get elected, not me.
Right. But yeah, I don't know. And that's the thing. It's like if you want to have like a Harry Potter like get together, have you ever heard some of the people who have like their own fan fiction of like Harry Potter and shit? It's like, oh man, well I think this or that. And it's like, it sounds like a religious person talking about Jesus. In my head, it just sounds the same. Like anytime I hear anybody go off on a fan fiction, oh well, I think this should be true about this fan fiction. It's like,
yeah,
it just sounds to me. It sounds the same. It's fanaticism, but it in a healthy way. Whereas like with religion, it's just, hey, well, you know, they hate them for being gay, kind of deal.
You got some people that would say that people who read Harry Potter need to burn at the stake because they're witches too.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. Let's talk about, speaking of religion influencing things. Hey, remember that one time a bunch of people ate shrooms and burned people for being women in the Salem witch trials? Hey, I slept with that one girl. Oh, shit, I can't tell my wife. She's a witch!
And yet today, one of the biggest sects of the Wiccan occult is in Salem, Massachusetts. And they love Halloween. It's like backwards.
No, but that's like, okay because they're owning it, right? That's like it's like Jesus bearing his own cross, right? Because it's the thing that killed him, technically, and he is owning the fact that he was killed by that cross. It's similar. Yeah, I can get that.
Multiple stabbings, lashes, bloodletting.
Yeah. And, you know... It
had nothing to do with it at all.
Right? I just want to get, you know... If Jesus were real, I'd give him a handshake and just, like...
they
be like, ooh, look at that!
To make sure that he was dead, they stabbed him and shoved vinegar into the hole.
Ew. Ew. Yeah, but apparently,
if he was alive, he would have...
They're like, well...
screamed in pain.
You know? Yeah. And you know, and my personal favorite is like, somebody was saying that too. yeah. I don't want to shout out the streamer, but um, somebody was saying that we shouldn't have politicians in office who believe that, at any point the end of the world could happen because they're influencing things like global warming to happen, and which thus would it trigger the end of the world. So it's like, oh, we're gonna, Jesus is going to come back. The end of the world is going to happen. So let's just destroy this world so that Jesus will come back. And then look at that, it's happening. Like these people who actually believe that the rapture is going to happen. It's like,
I mean, if
and that's the thing. It's like I'm not
anything's to be
saying.
believed in that.
I'm not. Just to be clear, I'm not forcing you to like. I'm not attacking like you specifically because you don't believe in this stuff. You don't believe in like.
I don't believe certain aspects.
Right. Well, I'm not asking you like to defend yourself.
I do believe that
on this.
Eventually the world's going to be ended in a catastrophic apocalypse.
Yeah, I mean that would happen in like 1 billion years when the sun expands, and then
we don't really know when it's going to happen because we
Right.
don't know how long the sun's been there.
I'm pretty sure it's like
Yeah,
it's like 1 billion
scientists-
years or something like that.
scientists can
Speculate. Yeah.
but it's not a true measurement of time.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, but I mean, it will, just most likely not in our lifetimes.
Considering how long ago time was invented.
Time was invented. I was there. I remember when, whatever his name was, invented time. Albert Einstein. Before then, time wasn't a thing.
No, before Isaac Newton, gravity wasn't.
Right. Everybody floated until that asshole decided to be like, oh, look at that. I've invented gravity. Boom. See, that's what happened. So Minecraft is an accurate depiction of reality. They just built things that were like suspended in air, and then Newton was like, everything's just dropped once he invented gravity.
Yeah. Also, I'm pretty sure more would happen if you dropped from 1,000 feet into a puddle of water.
Oh yeah, well that's true. No. Like, have you seen it? Like, there's videos of like people who have like a sliver, like the slightest bit of water, and they hit it and they're fine. It's like
The same thing is in Zelda.
oh no.
If you fall from the Sky Island and land in a puddle of water that's maybe just barely big enough for your feet, no damage.
Or
One movement away from that water, though, completely dead.
what was it in Assassin's Creed when Ezio goes into a pile of hay
Yes.
from like giant fucking leaps, goes in there, nothing happens. It's
Yes,
like, no,
yes.
you're dead. Like there's no way you would survive this. Yeah. God. Speaking of, departure from reality to imagination. Well, honestly, oh God, I love Minecraft.
So much.
It's so good. I could spend days just playing single levels. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I always make sure to like keep my ear to the ground when it comes to like, and like if there's anything I can do for like I don't know. I always like to try to
Definitely, religion is part of a human's need for escapism.
Sure. That makes
Some
sense.
People, a lot of people play games or video games. Or
See, this is why I wanted to.
do other things, whereas there's some people turn to religion.
Right. And this is one reason why I wanted to talk to you specifically about it, because these are my grievances, and my thought pattern is to just obliterate, like, I would be, like, for religious abolition, like, just departure from religion altogether. And I like to hear, like, one of the reasons why I love having conversations with people is because I feel very strongly about things. And I love having people who disagree with me, or, you know, they're coming from a different perspective, because it allows me to really, like, it allows me to have a challenge and to reassess what I believe to be true. So, like, one of the reasons why why I've converted from being conservative to being liberal is because a lot of those, like, if you listen to a lot of, this is a little tangent, but if you listen to a lot of conservative rhetoric, it's very one-dimensional. There is no deviancy from what they believe. It's like, what is a woman? Like with Matt Walsh, it's like, okay, well, it is a adult human female. It's like, you could just, or, you know, some people say, you know, what is a woman? It is a woman. A woman is a woman. If you are a woman in your own mindset, you are a woman. And it's like, this single dimension of thought pattern, unnuanced, untested, unregulated, is just, it's not interesting. It doesn't add any substance to the conversation. Whereas, if, you know, once I started to drift from being a conservative, I was like, okay, I would ask people in earnest, how do you feel about this? How do you, you know, it's like, give me the nuance, give me the understanding of what it is you're trying to say. I don't want some, like, what's that term? It's not scarecrow, it's the fallacy where you create a dummy and then attack the dummy. Anyway, that.
Voodoo?
No. No, it's not voodoo. Anyway.
You do create a dummy and then attack.
It's not that, though. It's, I don't remember what it is. Anyway. Straw man fallacy. Okay. So the straw man, you know, I don't want to create a straw man and then be like, okay, I attack the straw man. So this is one of the reasons why it's like, I could attack the straw man all I want, but I want somebody who actually has, like, a backbone when it comes to religion and be able to argue a point against my point, because, like, I think, like, a purely secular world would be optimal. But there is a sense of escapism that is fine, sure. But I think we could both agree that, like, religious institutions are creating a problem for society. And if we were to just tax churches into oblivion, or at least just, like, get rid of the ones that we have currently. I mean, you can have places where people meet up and have, like, nerd, you know, like, conventions or whatnot, and have them more outwardly, and people want to nerd out about the Bible, sure, that's fine.
Yeah.
But
don't make it into an occultic.
yeah, well, I mean, it's still a cult, but well, churches, for, you know, most intents and purposes, a cult. At least to me, it is. Especially when you can have, like, people who, like, I remember my grandfather told me when I was a kid that, you know, he's done some bad stuff in his child, or, you know, when he was younger and everything. And it's like, well, Jesus forgave me, therefore I'm forgiven. I'm like,
that's one way to put it.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that, like, so by his logic, I could rob a bank and, you know, cops come to me and say, you know, put your hands up, and, you know, I have bags of cash in my whatever, you know, I have a backpack or whatever. And it's like, you know, freeze, you know, you're under arrest. And it's like, Jesus, I'm sorry. And cops are like, oh, shit. My bad. My bad, guy. We're just going to walk home now. You're forgiven. So, I mean, that means that there's no ramifications in this physical realm for all the bad things you've done. So, you're good. You can go home. Don't do it again. And I think that's the part where I mean, and, and it's like, people who think that it's like okay to keep trans, and this is the, or it's like, oh, well, I want my kids to learn, my values. There's another thing. I want my kids to learn my values. Okay, well, what are your values? That they shouldn't be gay or trans. Until they're old enough. Yeah. And then you have other conservatives who are like, they'll make fun of trans people for looking like they do because they've experienced puberty that wasn't assigned, that was assigned gender at birth, even though they feel a different gender. It's like, but if you have puberty blockers, then you can prevent that, and then they can make a decision later on in life. But you don't have Christians who are like, oh, that's okay, and then they end up going into puberty with the dissatisfied gender, and then it's like, then there's high suicide rates. It's like, we shouldn't. It's like, well, I want to impart my values to my kids. If you want to have your values as far as like Harry Potter lore or Pokemon or whatever, it's fine. But that's not what's going on. You have people who are teaching kids like really harmful things. Especially like even going to church. I would say that kids shouldn't go to church if you don't want them indoctrinated. Because they are.
There's a certain point where a child should be able to choose.
Yeah.
But I could probably say at least teach them to use the toilet and not a cat. For those furries out there that think they should use a cat.
Oh no. Oh, okay. Story time, because I know exactly what you're talking about. Ready for this shit? Because I know what this is about. So a long time, a lot of conservatives were using this as a means of attacking trans people because they had litter boxes in the bathrooms. Well, they had litter boxes in the. You know what that was actually about? That was not about trans people or furries. That was about school shootings. And they were using it as a substitute in the case in which they weren't able to take the kids out of the school because there was a school shooting. So, kids had to go to the bathroom. There was no way for them to go to the bathroom while there's a school shooting happening. So they went to a litter box because that was the only thing that they could put inside an actual classroom. And conservatives were running with that and saying, oh, well, it's because of trans people and furries. That is not what happened. Oh, thank you for bringing that up, because I know that shit. No, because Joe Rogan said that shit. And I know that because, that sounds pretty insane. Until you actually do the research and realize he's full of shit. And this is more about, school shootings than it is about trans people. Okay. I'm calm now. I bet you didn't know that.
I knew the thing about the schools doing it for the school shootings.
Okay. I'm just doing it for the listeners at this point. All three of you. Sorry to go off.
I kind of said that.
Yeah, as a joke.
As a joke, and then you came up with the right response on that.
I only know this. I educate myself on this shit.
Because if I could, I would definitely teach my cat to flush the toilet instead of using the box. That shit stinks.
Literally. But yeah. Oh my god, that fan moved again.
Turn the other way.
Yeah.
It's turned all the way around.
It's not even helping us at this point.
That wall.
But yeah, instilling this like trans kid, or it's like, if your kid feels that way, I know somebody. Well, I'm not going to out this person, but I know somebody whose mom is against her being a lesbian, and it's really interesting, like when stuff like that happens, and it's like, and she's a devout QAnoner, like, and QAnon at its own instance has become its own religion. And there are different sects of them. SECT, not, you know what I mean?
Yeah, sect.
Yeah, sect. But yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like, I don't know. And that's the thing. It's like, to me, it's just, I wish we could move past it. But unfortunately, it's just the way it is. Like it. Actually, what's actually a really good religion is, well, it's better. It's like Judaism, because it's like, why?
Better.
It's better in the sense that like they're not like bigoted. From a perspective of like, I know Jewish people, and they're pretty like open. I know they think that they're God's chosen people, yes, but they also aren't like, they're not like, in a sense, like they're more open-minded to other people than like Christianity, or
they are, but they're still.
Or maybe I just met a lot of good Jews, and then it's like, oh,
there's a lot in Judaism where it's subjugated against women.
Yeah.
Certain things that you can.
Well, let's not juxtapose Judaism with the state of Israel, because Israel is that's another tangent. But long story short, Israel is a very fascist.
Yeah, they can
country.
They're pretty lax when it comes,
especially when it comes to Palestinians.
They are pretty lax when it comes to that sexuality thing.
Yeah.
But if you want to be a woman in a Jewish home, and you're, even if you're a man who thinks they're a woman, you're gonna get treated as a woman.
Oh, nice.
Which, if I want a sandwich, give me a sandwich. Goes on.
Is that the two genders?
Goes inside the house.
The one who wants a sandwich and one who thinks a sandwich.
I mean, if you're going to, in a lot of Jewish homes that I've seen, or even heard from other Jews, the women inside the home are supposed to be subservient. So if you're a man that believes you're a woman, if you're in a Jewish home, you're going to be treated like a woman. You're going to be asked to serve the man. doesn't mean sexually. I mean,
Yeah, I get you. Well,
man says, woman do.
yeah.
I'm not saying that they're not more lax.
I mean, yeah, you do have
to-
the connection of like the repression of women when it comes to most religions, and
most religions subjugates women, no matter what. Anyway.
Right. I guess maybe I don't know. Maybe it's one of those things where it's like,
So I don't generally believe in a religion because I don't want to subjugate anybody.
yeah,
But I still believe.
you're spiritual, not religious.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go. There's something there. Maybe something.
Yeah.
There's definitely
And that's the thing. It's like
other places that we might end up.
right. Imagine being a woman in a religious household. Like that's just. It sucks to like feel that you're beneath a man, and it's like it's like I tend to be very like in my relationship I tend to be like I feel like everything should be equal, and if it isn't equal, there's a problem. And I mean, obviously there are roles that we play.
It's definitely not like that from my parents. Still.
Yeah, and it's like it's so sad because it's like you're saying that when it comes to like religious people like that, it's like you're robbing somebody of their life. Oh, don't worry, it's gonna be better in the afterlife. I mean, is it? If there isn't one, then you just kind of sunk somebody into the ground.
Most Jews don't believe there is an afterlife.
Right. So.
Because it doesn't specifically say there is in the.
Yeah.
Jewish
I mean,
Bible.
they live for their current life. Like they actually have an importance on their life.
It's like.
And because of that, I think that's one of the reasons why Judaism is better than most religions, is because it is like, hey, there's nothing after this, treat yourself with a little bit of respect, treat the world with a little bit more respect.
After asking a rabbi, is there an afterlife? He sat there for a moment and said, do you believe there's an afterlife? And then he's like, well, there may or may not be an afterlife, but that's your decision to believe in.
Right.
It's like, but you believe in the Bible, right? And it says that there's an afterlife. And it's like, well, not really. There's mentioning of other places that doesn't necessarily mean that they exist. I'm like, shouldn't you believe every aspect of the Bible? It's like, yeah, but there's certain things in there, just not. That's more of morality,
Right.
less actuality.
Oh, that was one thing I always.
So it is what you believe it is.
That,
It's going to sway you either way.
right. So one of the questions that people who are religious always have for atheists are the sense of morality, and it's like, and I always take the position of the atheist, obviously, because it's like I create my own morals. I'm not afraid of some deity condemning me for all eternity for not doing those things. It's like, if I want to treat people with respect and do what I can to make life better for everyone, it's like I'm doing so because I believe it is morally correct. I'm not threatened from being a savage. Like, especially if you like listen to like Dennis Prager saying that, oh well, he would like, in one of his things he was saying that like he was saying that men have urges and all this stuff, but the reason they don't go after those urges is because God says you can't have sex before marriage. It's like, Okay. So you're saying that all men are, and the only thing that's preventing them from doing so is because God says no. Like that's not a position you want to have, because it just makes you sound like a monster. And Dennis Prager, let's be honest, he is a monster. Uh, I'm not going to sugarcoat that. He said some nasty things in his lifetime. Uh,
Didn't he get accused of it?
I mean, the look of you can't see this because there's no picture, but the shock of my face is just not there. I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest if that were to happen. Like most like people like that are monsters. But that's the thing. It's like it's just crazy to think how much like people think that if you don't have a religion, you don't have morals. It's like, I mean, granted.
If you have money, you don't have morals.
Right. If you're a billionaire, you look at everybody who's underneath you as trash.
If you're a billionaire, you say on the news that you can touch a woman's pussy.
Well, he did get indicted for that. I mean, whatever that means. But yeah, it's pretty sad. Hey, you can get away with anything. Like one of my things my dad always told me when I was a kid was like, rules are made he said rules are made for stupid people. And I said, that's not correct. After a while of understanding everything, rules aren't made for stupid people, they're made for poor people. Because if you're rich, you can do whatever the fuck you want and get away with it. It's like, the movie Monsters Incorporated was a fictitious story because the CEO was arrested.
Held accountable for his actions.
Right. He was held accountable for it, And you know what? Funny enough, that movie was pro-union. If you really want to think about it, because before it was capitalist, and then it was like, hey, workers owning the means of production and taking out the CEO, which they did. It's like, oh, look at that. Things were a lot better when they finally got rid of the CEO and unionized. Yeah, fun things. Or another anti or capitalist movie was Robots. Yeah, because everybody chips in pro-socialism. The mean, bad people were the corporations trying to make everybody into a look-alike.
Right, and if you didn't upgrade, you were junk.
Yes. And you were just given to the street sweepers.
Which took you to a place where you were recycled.
Yes. Yeah, because you're useless, because people are engines of exploitation under capitalism. And, this is why universal health care is the way it is because it's like, it's not profitable to keep people alive because people are just what you can soak out of them.
That was another aspect of that.
Mm-hmm.
That, why repair a perfectly good part
Yep.
when you can upgrade it?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. They were talking about that in the
Also
movie.
a little bit more, but that part's no longer being able to be repaired. We have the means to repair it, just not being repaired.
Which, that movie was, who's the guy who made that movie? It was, it's not Mel Gibson. It could be further from Mel Gibson. I know, he made Spaceballs. Wow. There's 2 different Robots movies. Wow, the director was Chris Wedge? Oh, okay, so I'm wrong. I thought it was done by, who was... Mel Brooks. Yeah. I thought it was done by Mel Brooks. My apologies. Well then, never mind what I was going to say. But yeah, and then you have like, what was it? You ever seen the movie Ants?
Oh yeah.
Where it was like, you have the big guy who's the grasshopper or whatever telling,
Right.
yeah, he's like, oh, if you unionize, they could take over the company, and or well, not the company, but
What he said was there's more of them and less of us.
right, the 99% versus the 1%.
If they learn that they can attack all of us, they win, and we no longer have the control.
Right. Yeah. And then you look at, and that actually that is the reason why I hate the movie The Incredibles. Because if you know anything about The Incredibles, and I've said this before, but I'll reiterate for everyone else, it is based on Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, which is a book based on the concept of the privileged, the 1%. They are the Übermensch, for all intents and purposes. The better person. It's not. Übermensch is like the superior beings, right? Like Hitler thought it was the Aryan race, and the people who are the betters are constantly shackled by the poor, preventing them from actually succeeding. Did you know about this?
I've heard this before. Heard this before.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, and the funny thing about that was Ayn Rand was also on welfare. Like, she took part of the one concept, the poor should not have any leg ups in the world. They should not have anything, right, because the Übermensch, the better people, should rise above everything else. And that was what The Incredibles were about, right? The whole thing was these people with superpowers should be eliminated. And the reason why Syndrome was like, if everyone's super, nobody will be.
Yes.
Right, he is communism in that instance.
His downfall was wearing a cape.
Yeah. Well, his downfall was the fact that, he, in all actuality, he actually didn't help. That is the capitalist perspective, is that, communism doesn't actually help people. Which, again, Syndrome didn't do. He didn't help anyone except himself.
He really didn't want to help anybody.
Right. The only thing he did was collect power for himself. He used the term for, like, he was the embodiment of communism from a perspective of it's just another way of somebody gaining control over people who are better than everyone else. He was that mantra that Republicans like to use as a means of saying, this is the better, you are not taking anything from the superior beings. You're just gaining power for yourself by using the coat of communism as kind of a defense mechanism. Saying it's for the people, when in reality you're not actually doing anything better than the people that you're subjugating.
There was a good idea in that movie, whereas, not to go on to politics, but more of the supers wanting to have equality. They didn't want to be in hiding their entire lives.
Yeah, right. The problem with, like, that concept,
not necessarily
right, like,
because they're better.
Right. You have which is adjacent to, like, Marvel, right, where you have the Sokovia Accords and them having to sign it and be one with the people, their actions being accountable. But again, what would you do with somebody who has a lot of power? right? That is a very good. What would you do with super beings who had more power than anyone else? They are the Ubermensch at that point, and you have. You would want a democracy where everybody can vote.
It's where you get into like My Hero Academia.
See, I feel like
all the super powered beings have to be licensed in order to do anything, and then their power is used by the people to help benefit everybody.
yeah, they essentially become conscription. But again, one of the reasons why I I really hope My Hero goes into more of this area that I'm about to lay out. But so far, what they're doing is not that. But what they're saying is essentially they're going into the concept of a police state, which is atrocious. Because when it comes to crimes, right, you punish certain people for committing those crimes, and the punishment is worse than the crime most of the time. And one of the reasons why it's like, so one of the reasons why like heavily in policed areas end up creating more crime that kind of have a negative feedback loop, and then you put something like that, and then you have that in like black communities or stuff like that, and then all of a sudden there's more crimes being committed, and then there's a circular kind of pattern. It's like what happens is that you don't necessarily treat the crime with the what it actually needs. So one of the reasons, like, and this is another thing, like if you look it up, everywhere where Walmart is, crime increases. Well, why is that? Because they buy out all the mom and pop shops that make it easier for people to have actual jobs, and then all of a sudden it's just Walmart and a very scarce amount of other jobs that have they increase rent around where they are, because it's like now people and like landlords and stuff like that. And it's like, well, if you have all these things that make it hard for people to live, they have increased crime. All of a sudden they start stealing, and because if you're desperate enough, you need money, you need resources, and working your ass off and just not achieving those goals makes it far worse. You create homelessness and all these things, and then you have, well, look at that, people are doing crimes, we need to solve this. But instead of actually solving it, you're making it worse by punishing people who are they're desperate, they're desperate, and they want a solution to the problem, but the problem they can't do legally. Their solution they can't do legally, they have to steal or something like that, and then police arrest them, do whatever they can, and then it just creates an infinite loop, because now they're in prison, they come out of prison, they can't get certain jobs, and they end up becoming more manipulated by the system. And to me, that is just, it's awful. And there's no way to do it in a system where you, like, a heavily policed state. And this is one reason why I do kind of like where My Hero is going with some things, because they're kind of saying that, where you have a lot of the people who are like, you took my home from me, you did things, but these were the good people doing good things, but in doing so you made it harder for me to exist, and you've done awful things to people, like what the guy with the blue flame, and it's like you encourage people to be punished without actually bettering their life outcomes. And I think that creating a police state, like what a lot of superhero movies do, only exacerbates that kind of situation. So if you want to have like the Ubermensch actually do anything to create a better life outcome for people, you would do so with, like, actually a good example. Have you ever seen Invincible?
Can't say him.
Dude, watch that. It is a hell of a fucking series. I watched it in an entire day because, like, holy crap, I was hooked from the very first episode. Even with the spoilers, I was hooked. So anyway, in Invincible, there's this one girl character. She's called Adam Eve. Adam Eve, I think, something like that. Anyway, she has the ability to create things. And somebody said, hey, dude, you have the ability to do good things. Go do good things. So she's like, oh yeah. Goes out, increases the crop development. Like, she has the ability to create. So she created more crop for people who were having issues with their, she enriched the lives of people who desperately needed it. And I think that's, if you can do that, if you can make it so that people with superpowers can enrich the life, and instead of focusing on crime and punishment, you give it more like, hey, you're a bad person. Like, let's say there's a bad person, right? They're creating chaos. We're going to make sure that you have a better life outcome instead of punishing you for those crimes. I think that would be. Sorry, I've really thought long about this. I think that, like, if you want to increase the betterment of the human race by having people with superpowers, like, imagine all the good the Incredibles could have done to actually defeating poverty and making their civilization better. But no, they had to integrate with it, and you end up creating, like, oh my god, I just realized Incredibles is very similar to Fight Club. Because yeah. In a sense, because, like, he was working at a desk, and then he punches his picture. Yeah. Of the Fight Club, the solution for capitalism is fascism.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were a bunch of nobodies. They didn't have a name. They just did what was needed in order to further the. It was just fascism. Like.
Yeah, but Phil, you just broke the #1 rule of Fight Club.
Shut the fuck up. Is that what happens? Like, that's what happens with the RNC? Like, they're just like, we don't talk about fascism.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to go that way, yeah, you don't talk about it.
That's why they deny being fascist. You don't talk about fascism. Yeah. Holy crap. Well, did you have anything more to add? Or no?
Yeah. I think my brain is fried a little bit.
Samesies. Well, it's great having you on, James. And I hope you enjoyed our conversation. I think we covered a lot of ground. A lot of spicy ground.
Yeah.
All right. And yeah, that was fun. All right. Well, I hope you all enjoyed. Huh?
Lots of different directions.
But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed. Like, comment, whatever it is, subscribe. Have a good day.